Welcome back to Alpha Recap, your aftermarket run-through of the biggest market moves and what they mean. We wrap the day with some clear themes: AI momentum, retail attention spikes, and a few local stories that quietly mattered. As always, if you have questions, you can reach us at stockalpha.ai and ask us directly.
Great to be here. Today was one of those days where headlines were mostly strategic: reorganizations, search spikes, trade show previews, rather than hard numbers. But there was still a lot to unpack.
Totally. What really stands out here is DXC's reorg in its consulting and engineering services group. Management framed it as a push to accelerate AI-driven growth, but they didn't give financial targets.
Right, and when a company signals an AI focus without numbers, analysts call that strategic signaling. It tells the market directionally where management wants to go: higher margin consulting and engineering work. But execution risk remains until we see revenue or backlog moves.
Execution risk. That's the key phrase. Investors were left waiting for client wins, KPIs, or any measurable traction that would justify a re-weighting of revenue assumptions.
Exactly. And the DXC note tied into a broader talent theme we saw. Goshen College named a Microsoft alum as Chief Innovation Officer, and Wade College expanded accelerated programs. So the talent pipeline story was loud today.
Which matters because consultancies need trained folks to staff AI projects. If colleges and vocational programs are ramping, that can ease hiring frictions over time and support the sector's capacity to scale projects.
Yeah, that tracks.
But stepping back, strategy is one thing. Converting it into revenue is another. Analysts noted that reorgs signal intent, but investors asked for follow-on disclosures. Watch DXC for client announcements and CES performance metrics.
And if management starts naming client wins or raising win rates, that would be the kind of operational KPI markets often reprice on.
Moving from services to semiconductors. This was a busy day for chip names. AMD search interest spiked, and NVDA traded huge volume, even though the price barely moved.
Right. The search data was interesting. AMD stock hit 20,000 US searches, a 100% jump, which is the kind of retail signal that tends to precede higher intraday volatility.
And NVIDIA finished the day down about 0.25% at about $198.35, but with roughly 133 million shares changing hands. Heavy turnover, even on a small price move.
That combination, search spikes for AMD and enormous volume for NVIDIA, often points to positioning flows, profit-taking, options hedging, or just a lot of hands shifting.
Could you unpack why search spikes matter? Because some listeners might think searches are just noise.
Sure. In plain terms, increased search activity shows retail attention is rising. More eyeballs often translate into more trading orders, which can amplify intraday moves. When searches spike without confirmed news, price action can get rumor-driven and more volatile.
So it's like a canary in the coal mine for short-term activity. But it doesn't tell you direction by itself.
Exactly. It signals that something could happen: volume, chatter, options, or news, but not whether it'll be broadly positive or negative.
Analysts reminded listeners to check options, put-call skew, and implied volatility, because when retail interest jumps, options dynamics can move quickly and affect hedging flows.
Right. Options flows can actually drive underlying stock volume, especially in names with lots of derivatives activity. For NVIDIA, that heavy turnover at a small price move suggested active positioning rather than a directional conviction day.
Not a great day if you were hoping for a clear directional signal from the chip giant.
Heavily traded, but barely moved. Classic story of a name that stayed in focus because of its role in the AI compute stack.
We also saw a bunch of retail and policy search spikes that were unrelated but important. Student loan searches jumped to 10,000, up 500%. And Sweet v. McMahon settlement agreement hit 10,000 searches, up 200%.
Those are the kinds of search jumps that can create headline risk. For student loans, a sudden surge in interest could lead to more scrutiny on servicers and lenders. Analysts pointed to names tied to federal servicing and private lending as ones to watch for potential volume and sentiment moves.
But it's important to emphasize, a search spike is not a confirmed market event. Analysts suggested focusing on filings and official disclosures rather than chasing search-driven rumors.
Yep. For longer-term investors, fundamentals and confirmed filings were the guidance that day.
Quick aside, the Sweet v. McMahon spike sounded obscure. There wasn't an obvious public company tie yet, so it raised uncertainty rather than clarity.
Which means traders would watch for any link to public companies. If one emerged, that could become an actual catalyst.
Switching gears, at sector events, we had a small cap play. AIC Inc. said it would show media production storage platforms at the NAB show next year. Sounds niche, but it fits a pattern.
Yes, infrastructure for media workflows is a steady niche, and trade show visibility often leads to partner and customer leads. Post-show press releases can translate into revenue-readable signals for smaller vendors.
And storage demand can be adjacent to AI compute. Think of media editing and AI-based metadata workflows, which need specialized storage performance and integration.
So even a small vendor showing an NAB may be tapping into that broader AI data trend. Analysts said to monitor post-show announcements and product specs closely.
We can't forget the local labor story. 70 administrative and public works employees in Indio, California, voted to join the Teamsters. It was small in scale, but it mattered for muni credit watchers.
Municipal unionization can affect city budgets and service timing. Fixed income managers with concentrated city exposures were advised to track council filings and actuarial updates to reassess near-term budget stress.
Again, modest scale, but fits a trend of local labor activity that can aggregate into larger fiscal effects in some places.
Brief reactions. Right.
Wow.
A few short takeaways before we wrap. First, AI remained the connective tissue, from DXC's Reorg to academic hires to storage vendors gearing up for media workflows. It was the theme tying a lot of otherwise separate items together.
Second, retail attention was decentralized and active. Search spikes for AMD, student loans, and that legal query indicate narrative-driven flows can pop up anywhere and create volatility.
Third, many items were strategic rather than financial. That elevates the importance of follow-on disclosures, contracts, client wins, or revenue metrics to actually move valuations.
Rapid-fire recap. DXC reorganized CES with an AI focus. AMD search interest spiked to about 20,000. NVIDIA finished down about 0.25%, with roughly 133 million shares traded. Student loan searches jumped to 10,000. Goshen and Wade colleges announced AI-related hires and programs. AIC planned an NAB show display, and Indio workers joined the Teamsters.
What to watch next? Look for DXC follow-ups on clients, or CES KPIs, AMD and NVIDIA disclosures, or options activity, whether the student loan and legal search trends persist or produce filings. NAB show post-event releases, and any Indio municipal budget updates.
Quick reminder, this episode was recorded after markets closed, so everything we discussed was historical market action. Analysts noted trends and potential catalysts, but this was for informational purposes only.
We didn't recommend buying, selling, or holding anything. Data suggested possible directions, but personal circumstances and filings should guide any decisions.
Final takeaways. Watch whether DXC turns strategic signaling into measurable wins. Monitor retail search momentum around AMD and policy themes. And keep an eye on trade show follow-ups and local labor filings for concrete impacts.
If you want us to dig deeper on any of these threads or pull filings and options data for a name, head to stockalpha.ai and ask in the Q&A. We'll answer live and follow up with analysis.
For more market analysis and timely recaps, visit stockalpha.ai. If you have questions about anything we covered today, head to stockalpha.ai, where you can ask us directly and we'll answer live. For more market analysis and insights, visit stockalpha.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next Market Wrap.